Now, our new president has, of course, not been in this line of work before, and I think had excessive expectations about how quickly things happen in the democratic process.
That was actually as candid as we have seen that man in a long time. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell back home in Kentucky this week. McConnell's relatively harmless criticism of the president, Trump's unrealistic expectations, his being new to political life, not so harmlessly received. Today, the president took to Twitter and writing a response. Senator Mitch McConnell said, "I had excessive expectations, but I don't think so. After 7 years of hearing repeal and replace, why not done?" Earlier, Sean Hannity at Fox News said this on Twitter: "Senator, you are a weak, spineless leader who does not keep his word, and you need to retire." That was followed by the White House social media director and assistant to the president, who also called out McConnell. Senate Majority Leader must have needed another 4 years, in addition to the 7 years, to repeal and replace Obamacare. We can't say this enough. This normally doesn't happen in American politics. It's also important to remember here, nothing moves through the U.S. Senate without Mitch McConnell. And McConnell's wife, as luck would have it, Elaine Chao, is in the Trump cabinet as your Secretary of Transportation. That sets the table. Let's talk about this. That's Sam Stein, who you can hear laughing. He's back with us at the panel. Kelsey Snell joins us from Capitol Hill, who covers Congress for the Washington Post. So, Kelsey, I don't know how to come at this. This is uncharted territory, but that's a phrase we have used for 203 nights at least. Sean Hannity and the folks at Fox seldom say anything on a whim or by accident, so that really got my attention, calling on the Majority Leader of the U.S. Senate, same party as the president, to resign.
Yeah, that was absolutely shocking. I think the thing to remember here, though, is that McConnell never promised that this was going to be easy or that this was going to be fast. That was Trump who promised that. And McConnell, from the jump, was telling people that this was going to take time. And when he had that big press conference with Speaker Ryan back in January, when they were kicking off the whole year, he kept talking about how they needed to get through, approving all of these nominees. They had to approve a Supreme Court justice. There were things that he had to do, and he wanted to kind of set measured expectations. And Trump didn't listen. The White House didn't listen. It was there were signs throughout the entire process that McConnell needed more time, and he needed to work with his members and let the Senate be the Senate, the slow Senate, the little break that is on the entire process. And Trump didn't want to have that happen.
Sam, David Letterman had a segment he called, "Is This a Thing?" And that's my question for you. Is this really a thing, that there's going to be a movement to displace the Senate Majority Leader?
I don't think so, but like you said, we've lived through 203 days of norms being broken, so who knows? Usually, I remember covering the 2009-2010 Obamacare fight. And
during an earlier carefree time.
And I will say this, Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid's office and the White House did not like each other during the fight, and they would go at each other, but it was always anonymous, and it was always at the aide level, and there would be these backstabby quotes, and you would write about it, and it'd be great fodder. The principals don't normally do this. The principals don't come out and they don't say things like this, like Trump is saying to McConnell right now. But the truth is, it's been brewing for a while, and it's not just health care. Expectations, for instance, are there. Russia sanctions bill, remember, Trump did not want it. Senate just passed it, gave it to him. You can increasingly see with Jeff Flake, for instance, writing a book admonishing not just Trump, but leadership for not standing up to Trump. There is some fissures that are breaking, and they are threatening to erupt completely in public view.
So, Kelsey, I need not remind you, because it's your beat, when they come back, oh, they're going to need a budget, they're going to need debt ceiling. Say nothing of if we want to see infrastructure and tax policy or another run at health care. I'm duty-bound to ask you, if not McConnell, then who? Is it Cornyn, perhaps? And why stop there? Is Ryan's job safe as House Speaker?
You know, I actually think that Ryan is more susceptible to some of this pressure from Trump than McConnell is. Ryan already has a really fractured group of Republicans. We've seen the Freedom Caucus go after him. You have people who are rumbling and grumbling about the really tough vote they had to take on health care, only to see it fall apart in the Senate. And it's really hard to state exactly how much McConnell is liked. Yes, Flake did take him to task in that book, and yes, there are a few senators who question, you know, his approach, but he is so popular. I spoke with senators on their way out of town last week, and to a person, they spoke with great respect for McConnell. And yeah, they may grumble. Yes, they have internal family fights, but at the end of the day, McConnell's really popular, and it's up to his fellow Republicans whether or not he gets to keep that job. And as long as they like him, it doesn't matter what the president says.
Kels makes a good point there, Sam. Whose legacy has been hurt more with health care, Trump or McConnell?
That's a really good question. I don't know. If you talk to people in the Republican Party, the voters, they're more prone to blame the Senate for this than they are the president, in part because the Senate has been, and McConnell has been, promising this for years, knowing full well that repeal and replace was always going to be a very tough task. And Trump, he's new to this game. He didn't come in quickly, although he did overpromise in this case. From a legacy perspective, I think McConnell's going to be okay eventually. He'll go down as a great tactician still, and I keep getting reminded about this. He was one vote away. Remember, all his members were saying they hated this bill. They thought it was gross and toxic. They didn't want it to pass. They were praying that the House wouldn't pass it. And given all that, he got 49 votes. That is an incredible feat, even though he came up a little short.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me, or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.